Well, the Dead Sea is a natural wonder, a biblical landmark, and a mineral treasure. But this unique body of water is getting smaller. And as Chris Mitchell reports, some experts fear the Dead Sea could be drying up. Take a look.
Something extraordinary is happening at the Dead Sea.
7 decades since the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, around 80 new fragments of the ancient texts.
A place long thought too salty to support life. For the first time in decades, living fish have been spotted, defying nature and science alike. Could this astonishing event be linked to the ancient prophecies of Ezekiel, who spoke of waters teeming with life in a place once considered lifeless? The signs may be unfolding right before our eyes. Dead Sea Crisis. The Dead Sea is one of the most mysterious places on Earth. It lies more than 430 meters below sea level, which makes it the lowest exposed point on the planet. For thousands of years, travelers came here to float on its thick, salty water and breathe its heavy, mineral-rich air. It was a place people believed could heal the body and calm the mind. What few imagined was how quickly this ancient wonder could begin to disappear. For centuries, the Dead Sea was kept alive by the Jordan River, along with a number of smaller streams. Fresh water flowed down into the basin and replaced the water that slowly evaporated under the desert sun. This natural balance protected the sea and kept its water level steady through generations. It was a quiet and dependable relationship. The river gave life, and the sea endured. Then, everything changed. Over the last several decades, the amount of water reaching the Dead Sea has dropped sharply. Countries surrounding the Jordan River began diverting its water for farming, drinking, and industry. The river that once fed the Dead Sea with strength now delivers only a fraction of what it once did. The basin no longer receives enough fresh water to make up for what it loses each year. At the same time, another pressure grew along the shoreline. Powerful mineral industries built vast evaporation ponds to extract potash, bromine, magnesium, and other valuable minerals. To keep these operations running, enormous volumes of water are pumped away from the sea and left to evaporate in the open air. When the water disappears, only the minerals remain. With every passing season, this process takes more water out of the basin than nature can replace. The result has been dramatic. Since the 1960s, the Dead Sea has lost roughly half of its total surface area. It once covered around 1,200 square kilometers. Today, it is closer to 600. The water level continues to fall by almost 1 full meter every single year. As it retreats, the landscape around it is changing in ways that are shocking to witness. As the earth beneath the sea begins to crack and shift, the valley quietly starts revealing fractures that hint at far greater instability than anyone ever imagined. The impossible return. As the Dead Sea continues to shrink, something unsettling has been happening along its edges. The land itself has begun to collapse. What used to be solid ground is turning into a fragile skin stretched over empty space. In many places, this skin suddenly gives way, opening deep circular pits that seem to appear without warning. These are the now famous Dead Sea sinkholes, and they have become one of the most dramatic signs of the sea's disappearance. Scientists working around the basin have recorded more than 6,000 sinkholes on both the Israeli and Jordanian sides. The number is staggering. Some of these cavities are small, only a meter or so deep, while others drop 10 meters into the earth. Certain sinkholes stretch 25 to 30 meters across, large enough to swallow cars or buildings in a single moment. What is even more frightening is that many of these holes form silently. One day the ground feels firm underfoot, and the next day it simply collapses. Researchers now understand why this is happening. For tens of thousands of years, salt layers lay hidden beneath the surface, trapped under the weight of the Dead Sea's heavy brine. When the sea was full, these layers were stable. But as the shoreline retreats, the old salt beds are exposed to fresh water from nearby aquifers. This fresh water flows into the underground salt layers and dissolves them slowly. Over time, this creates empty spaces beneath the surface. When these spaces grow too large, the soil above them sinks downward and the land breaks open. This process began to speed up in the early 1980s. Once the sea level started dropping more rapidly, the hidden salt beds began to collapse more often. After the year 2000, the situation grew even more alarming. Hundreds of new sinkholes began appearing each year. In some years, as many as 400 fresh collapses were recorded. The coastline became a patchwork of danger zones, and the ground could no longer be trusted. The damage is not limited to empty land. Sinkholes have ripped through roads and farms. They have destroyed date palm orchards tended for generations. Entire parking lots, small buildings, and tourist areas have been swallowed. Hotels and recreation sites once filled with visitors now sit abandoned behind warning fences. What was once a bustling shoreline has become a landscape full of caution signs and uncertainty. And yet, just when the land seems to be giving up, something far stranger begins to stir beneath those cracks as water seeps in, cavities fill, and the faint pulse of new life appears in the most unexpected places. How the deep ground remembers. Deep beneath the surface of the Dead Sea lies a hidden world that most people never think about. It is a world made of ancient salt, pressed and shaped by vanished waters and forgotten climates. Long before modern cities stood in this region, long before history itself was written, the Dead Sea was a very different place. Its shoreline stretched much farther, its waters were higher and stronger. During that distant time, as the lake expanded and shrank with shifting climates, thick layers of salt settled across the basin floor. Geologists believe one of these layers formed around 11,000 to 10,000 years ago, during a period when the Dead Sea was losing more water than it gained. This ancient layer is known as the sinkhole's salt layer. It lies beneath the modern shoreline and acts as a kind of fragile skeleton that holds up the ground above it. For thousands of years, it remained undisturbed and unseen, safely hidden under dense brine and heavy sediment. As the water level dropped decade after decade, the enormous weight that once protected the salt layer became lighter. New scientific work that includes 40 boreholes drilled along the western shore shows just how uneven and delicate this hidden layer really is. The thickness and elevation of the salt change from place to place. These details help scientists understand the Dead Sea's past. They reveal ancient lake levels, past shorelines, and long-forgotten underwater landscapes. They also show how dramatically the lake has shifted through the ages. But the greatest danger comes from something else. As the Dead Sea shrinks, the boundary between salty water and fresh water underground begins to move. Fresh water from nearby aquifers quietly slips into the places where only strong brine once existed. Fresh water dissolves salt with ease, so when it reaches the old salt layer, it begins to carve out empty spaces beneath the land. Slowly and silently, the ground loses its strength. What follows on the surface are the sinkholes that now scar the region. Because the salt layer was formed when the lake was much larger, its reach extends far inland. This means huge parts of the coastline sit on top of a foundation that is now dissolving. Studies on the Jordanian side of the sea, which track sinkholes from the late 1960s to 2017, show a clear pattern. As the water level drops, collapses follow like echoes. And as the underground salt skeleton of the Dead Sea crumbles, what emerges may be more than empty space as something old, sealed away for millennia, begins to push its way back into the light, from hypersalinity to freshwater intrusion. For most of its known history, the Dead Sea was considered a place where life could not exist. Its waters held an enormous amount of salt, far more than the ocean, and the minerals packed inside them made the water almost syrup-like. Magnesium, potassium, calcium, and bromides collected over thousands of years as the sun evaporated more water than the lake could replace. The result was a world where fish could not live and plants could not grow. Even a single drop in the eye could sting with surprising force. Scientists often describe the Dead Sea as a natural laboratory of extremes, a place where life had no room to thrive. The thick, salty brine that once filled every underground space is no longer strong enough to hold its territory. Fresh water from nearby aquifers begins to slip into the empty places. This fresh water is sometimes clear and sometimes slightly brackish, but it is still gentle enough to reshape the underground world. In certain zones, it has already replaced the heavy brine that has ruled the basin for ages. As the old hypersaline water pulls back, the edges of the Dead Sea begin to reveal something unexpected.
The Dead Sea's eastern shores belong to Jordan, while the southern and western portions belong to Israel.
New habitats appear at the margins. Thin layers of porous soil form where salt once dominated. Shallow depressions that were previously too salty for any life now hold pockets of softer water. Even hidden channels beneath the surface begin to widen as fresh water carves pathways through the weakening salt layers. Scientists studying the area describe this as a dramatic shift in the hydroecology of the basin. It is as if the land itself is preparing for a new chapter. The changes do not stop there. As the salt crusts collapse and the soil becomes infused with fresh or lightly mineralized water, small signs of life begin to return. Vegetation starts to take root near the edges. Patches of wet earth appear where none existed before. Microbial communities, tiny and resilient, test the new environment. These small forms of life were impossible when the land was drowned in salt. Now, their presence suggests something remarkable. Some researchers even call this the beginning of an ecological rebirth. This transformation is challenging everything scientists believed about the region. The Dead Sea is no longer simply a sterile salt lake. It is becoming a shifting in-between zone, not fully land and not fully sea. A fragile landscape caught in transformation. And then, as the old salt sea skeleton dissolves and fresh water begins to seep, ancient dreams and old prophecies written long before science began start to stir in a way no one can ignore. When prophecy meets geology. For thousands of years, ancient writings have spoken of deserts turning green and lifeless places filling with water again.
We will explore the Qumran caves, where most ancient Hebrew manuscripts were found, and learn about the community of scribes who wrote them.
Texts like the Book of Ezekiel, the Book of Isaiah, and the Psalms describe visions of rivers flowing through dry valleys and barren lands, bursting with new life. Many people have treated these images as poetry or metaphor, powerful words meant to inspire rather than predict. Yet what is happening around the Dead Sea today gives these old visions an unexpected physical substance. Something written long ago seems to echo through the modern landscape. Geologists studying the region uncover facts that almost feel like reflections of those ancient images. The enormous salt layer buried under the Dead Sea, created thousands of years ago, is weakening under the steady pressure of freshwater intrusion. Sinkholes spread across the land, underground pathways shift, new pockets of fresh or lightly brackish water appear at the edges of the basin. The transformation is not imagined. It is real, and it is written into the very structure of the earth. Long before the sea became a symbol of lifelessness, this region was fertile. Historical descriptions and geological research show that the valleys around the ancient lake once supported much richer ecosystems. Studies of sediments and buried lakebeds reveal that the Dead Sea did not always look the way it does now. Its levels rose and fell many times over thousands of years. The layer known as the sinkhole's salt layer is evidence of these ancient cycles. It was created during a period when the lake was much larger. Its presence shows that dramatic changes in the basin are not new. They have been part of the land's long memory. what makes the present moment different is the speed. Human activity has pushed the natural cycle into fast forward. Water from the Jordan River is diverted. Industries extract minerals from the sea. These actions accelerate processes that once took centuries. The landscape is now shifting in decades. In some ways, the basin is reverting to a state it once held in the distant past. Only the return is rushed by human hands and geological forces working together. This raises profound questions. Is humanity simply speeding up a natural cycle or creating a collapse that was never meant to happen? And if the land is entering a stage of rebirth, what forms of life will take advantage of the changing waters? New streams may form. New plants may take root. Microbes and other small organisms may quietly enter the scene and reshape it again. And as the land remembers what it once was, the signs of rebirth begin whispering not only across the soil and the water, but also deep within human hearts, opening a possibility of transformation far beyond the basin itself. Revival of land and spirit. If the current transformation of Dead Sea continues, the region may evolve from a harsh salt desert into a mixture of wetlands, brackish pools, soft soils, and new habitats. Scientists studying the ground beneath the sea believe that the dissolving salt layers and the steady rise of fresh water could eventually create conditions where plants, reeds, and a range of small organisms might thrive. The area that once pushed life away may one day welcome it back. This shift is not only environmental, it affects the lives of the people who live and work around the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea is the saltiest body of water on Earth. In fact, it is 9.6 times saltier than the ocean.
Roads once considered safe now crack and sink as the earth beneath them weakens. Tourists visit less frequently. Hotels and resorts that were once busy stand close to danger zones. Mineral extraction facilities face rising uncertainty as the geology beneath them becomes unstable. Every new sinkhole adds stress to the region and raises questions about how long the surrounding infrastructure can endure. Yet the meaning of this transformation goes beyond science and economy. For people who know the ancient stories of this land, the changes feel strangely familiar. Old texts speak of places that were once lush, then judged, then left to desolation. Now, after centuries of silence, the Dead Sea appears to be stirring again. New water seeps into old salt. Fresh soil forms at the edges. Plants take root in places where nothing grew for generations. It feels as though the land itself is remembering something long forgotten. The environmental crisis, though frightening, may also create room for a new beginning. Without intending to, human activity may have set the stage for a kind of rebirth. A place long known only as a symbol of death and stillness may become a reminder of resilience and renewal. People who once saw the Dead Sea as a fading relic now look at it with a sense of wonder and uncertainty. This transformation challenges everything that was believed about the region's fate. But none of this is guaranteed. Nature does not follow a straight or gentle path. Sinkholes continue to open without warning. The movement of fresh water may shift aquifers that support distant towns and farms. Climate change adds another layer of unpredictability. The rebirth that seems possible could also bring losses and hardships. The land is learning to breathe again, but not without struggle. And beneath the cracked earth, as water moves and the ground breathes anew, something may be stirring that could reshape not only a sea, but the story of an entire land and its people. A new chapter for the Dead Sea. Scientists continue to watch the region closely. Hydrogeologists measure groundwater movements beneath the surface. Limnologists study the chemistry and biology of the shrinking lake. Local authorities map the spread of sinkholes and track the formation of new water pockets. Their goal is to understand whether the Dead Sea will eventually reach a new point of stability. It might not remain a giant salt lake. Instead, the basin could develop into a patchwork of wetlands, brackish pools, or even small freshwater systems fed by underground aquifers. Such a shift would reshape the entire character of the region. If this transformation continues, it could mark the end of the Dead Sea as the world has known it for thousands of years. The old image of a silent, salty, lifeless sea could give way to a landscape filled with shifting water, soft mud flats, delicate plants, and tiny organisms beginning to settle. Life would return slowly, hesitantly, but unmistakably. A place long considered the symbol of lifelessness would take its first steps toward renewal. This change carries great weight for the people who live around the basin. Water flow patterns may shift and affect drinking water supplies. Farmers may need to rethink how and where they plant. Towns might move or redesign their roads and foundations. Tourism, which once relied on the famous floating experience, may struggle or transform into something new. Even the mineral industries that helped shape the region's economy may need to adapt or relocate. At the same time, new opportunities could appear. Wetlands bring bird life. Fresh soil brings plant growth. Conservationists may see a chance to protect rare ecosystems being born in real time. And now, as the Dead Sea's salt bones crumble and new waters quietly stir, the world watches with silent anticipation, sensing that this ancient basin may vanish forever or rise again in a form no living person has ever seen. What do you think? Could this be a sign of prophecy coming true? Share your thoughts in the comments below.